Rossi, who is talking about finding your passion.
Flying cars, hovercrafts, holograms, virtual reality, and children. This is the future. Children are the future. And I know from NPR headlines to even dinner table talk, you guys are far too familiar with that saying. But without fail, this is the truth of reality that we find ourselves in. But can we really trust the future of the whole world as we know it in the hands of kids? I mean, we're all still kids or were kids at one time or another. And despite our different stories and the different backgrounds that we came from, there's one thing that truly unites us all together. And that's the fact that we were dreamers. We had aspirations. We could be and do anything we wanted to be and do. And nothing could stand in the way of that. If you wanted to be a rock star and tour the world, nothing could stop you. If you wanted to be an astronaut and explore new planets, nothing could stop you. If you wanted to be king of the whole world, nothing could stop you. And part of being a dreamer means having the creative spirit and genuine curiosity that all children have. It's part of their mindset. And being a dreamer is the first step on the most important journey of our lives. And that journey is finding the courage to follow our passions. And this creativity and curiosity are the cornerstones to innovation and creation, so that we can find the life-changing solutions that can solve the problems that we're facing in today's world, that are, quite frankly, much greater than any we've ever seen before. And I know these words, follow your passion, are thrown around all the time as kind of a mantra for success. But the reality is that following through with these three seemingly simple words is not simple. In fact, it's extremely difficult. And all of us here know that, which is why not everyone in the world is following their passions. But the problem might be getting much worse than we may even realize. In fact, nearly 1/3 of this year's college freshman class is majoring in something that doesn't match up with their interests. And in 2013, out of nearly 1.2 million high school students that offered information about their interests and their college majors, only 36% of them were in a major that matched up with their interests. And even more alarming, 32% of them were in a major that didn't even match with their interests and was a poor fit for them. That means that 64% of people are going and getting a college education for something that doesn't interest them at all, half of which are in a major that's a terrible fit for them. And you may be wondering, going into a major that doesn't interest you? Sounds like a no-brainer. How is this happening? Why is this happening? But the answer lies in the environment that we have been perpetuating. Through expectations and so-called societal norms, kids these days are growing up in a society where they fear being wrong, they fear being out of place, they fear being different. And it's interesting because we make a lot of our decisions, from career choices to educational opportunities to even personal activities, based on what other people think is best for us, or based on what our peers are doing, or based on what society thinks is ideal for us. Even in our schools, we're bred to think more with our heads than with our hearts. And we're treated with this generic formula for all students, rather than specifically catering to the individual interests of special students. And this can often stray them away from truly following their passions. And even in general, we're all far too obsessed with trying to make the optimal decision by factoring in all these external voices outside of us. But the reality is that this optimal decision isn't always what makes us happy in real life. And I know, this sounds like, whoa, it is impossible to follow your passions. There's no way anyone could do it. But I want to tell you why it is so important to keep fighting for these passions. and why finding the courage to do so may just be the greatest accomplishment of them all. See, passion can mean so many different things. Being passionate about something means finding something that makes you happy, something that lights a fire under you, something that drives you to be the best version of yourself simply out of love for your passion. It means being an influencer, a game changer, a true visionary. And we need people growing up right now to have the spirit and the passion to fix our problems and to create, so that without it, there's no real inner drive pushing us to change the world. And driving towards this future, it is so important that we challenge each other to break down these societal boundaries. Because if we don't break down these societal boundaries that make this necessary journey so difficult, we can't all embrace our passions and find the courage to do so. And there are a couple examples of this throughout history, prime of which is Florence Nightingale, who substantially impacted the fields of both nursing and medicine in general. But if she had listened to her external voices, likely wouldn't have been so. Nightingale's father was a wealthy landowner, and her mother was an ambitious socialite who wanted her to follow in her own footsteps by conforming to the Victorian standards of childbearing and marriage. But Nightingale, she was passionate about nursing, and she even went so far as to say that she felt a godly calling towards nursing. But at the time, society looked down upon nurses, and they were seen as uneducated, even promiscuous. So her parents forbade her from that line of work. But after declining a marriage proposal at the age of 30 and instead enrolling in nursing school, her parents finally conceded and understood that Nightingale valued nursing far more than marriage. And she went on to revolutionize nursing practices, implement educational programs, and completely change sanitation practices in hospitals, setting a precedent that completely changed the future of medicine. Another great example is Robert Zemeckis, a filmmaker, who, if he had listened to his outside voices, we wouldn't have everyone's favorite sci-fi movie, Back to the Future. And we wouldn't even have one of my personal favorites, Forrest Gump, which he won an Oscar for. Zemeckis' blue-collar family saw his interest in filmmaking as more of a phase and didn't look on it too kindly. In fact, even when he applied and was accepted into film school, his parents responded by saying, "Don't you see where you come from? You can't be a movie director." And these comments obviously devastated Zemeckis. But rather than getting down because of it, he used it to fuel his journey, and eventually became widely successful and a film pioneer as a result of it. All because he was courageous enough to keep following his passions. And I think about my parents all the time in this situation. To most immigrants, the United States was the promised land. It had everything that anyone could ever want. But moving here was not the status quo. In fact, it was very difficult, and only the brightest of the brightest could even come close to doing so. And moving up in the world from those humble beginnings to where we are today just leaves me in awe. And I wouldn't be here staying in front of you guys here today if they let someone else determine their reality. If they just understood that, oh, moving to the United States is unrealistic. But they didn't. And instead, they followed their passions and their inner drive to be the best versions of themselves that they could be. And that meant moving to the United States and starting a family. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to have these role models and these opportunities in my educational environment, from internships to research opportunities to being able to embrace the fine arts to all these career-oriented organizations around me. And because of all of this, I've been able to learn and grow past these societal boundaries that can too often box us in. And I've been able to find the courage to pursue my own passions. And there are a few success stories of this situation, but that's the extent of it. A few. But a few is not enough. If we truly understand the incredible positive implications that come with following our passions, then we truly understand the urgency with which we must foster an environment in which the youth of future generations understand and feel safe and secure in their journeys, so that few turns into all, so that we as a society are in the fast lane to success by following our own passions. Pablo Picasso, one of the great creative minds of our time, once said, "All children are artists, but the problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up." So I'm here today to tell all of you, each and every one of us are artists. But if we truly want to further our world and elevate to the progress that we have aimed for, we must help the youth of our future to remain artists when they grow up, by helping them to find the courage to pursue their passions, and by breaking down these societal boundaries, so that rather than taking our place, they can define their own place and change the world. Thank you.